of Grow and Tell. I am joined today by Melanie and Cowboy of Purple City Genetics. They are based out of Oakland, and they run a collective breeding cultivation lab, a lot of different things going on. So I'm very excited to talk especially about pheno hunting, about breeding, things like that. So welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem. Yeah, I did a little bit of perusing over the website, things like that, my due diligence, if you will, and saw a lot of different things going on. It sounds like you have so many different branches to your company. So do you want to give like a little introductory spiel, anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're one of the legacy operators here in California. We've been running a nursery, breeding and making seeds for about 15 years. I kind of officially got branded ourselves in 2008 when Obama administration came in, but a lot of the guys have been doing it much longer. And once we pushed into licensing in 2018 and been focusing on our breeding and really expanding our seeds for field growers and having a lot of different options for exclusivity for growers. And then we also started a lab, which is really internally facing to support all of our cultivators who have such deep experience with the plant, and kind of adding that agricultural science aspect to our breeding programs by identifying markers, ways to accelerate our breeding, as well as identify pathogens, test for pathogens, and make sure that all of our products are really clean.
Awesome. Yeah. So Cowboy, what role do you take in all of those things?
Well, I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm mainly in the garden, and mainly do a lot of the breeding and the pheno hunting.
Cool.
It started out with me kind of in the general area with clones and things like that, and then as we progressed and we started breeding a lot more and pheno hunting a lot more, I got more involved in that. So that's kind of what I'm in charge of.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm in my experience, pheno hunting takes quite a bit of space. I've never worked at a facility that actually had the financial backing to do any breeding. So that's really cool. How big is your guys' facility?
It's a 5,000 square foot indoor facility.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Yeah. Because you're not, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you are not producing flower for sale. You do flower some of these plants out, but they're not going into jars. They're not being marketed. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, our core business is a clone nursery, and we supply clones to cultivators and to dispensaries for home growers. And then we have 5 smaller rooms that we use for the pheno hunting, the testing, and the seed production.
Heck yeah. Very cool. So that's awesome. I think a lot of our listeners, especially like home growers themselves, would be surprised to hear that breeding, in a breeding facility, they're not actually generally putting anything to market as far as the final flower. Especially because in Washington State, like all of our canopy space is basically licensed for production and not for breeding. And then on top of that, when I was in graduate school, breeding itself was like a dying art. Like all of the old school breeders, even in big ag, were retiring when I was in graduate school, and there was nobody really interested in breeding. So why did you guys decide to pursue breeding?
The boss has always kind of been into it. It's something that he's always kind of wanted to do. I've always messed around with it. I've been growing about 20 years, and me and my dad did a little bit of breeding in the early 2000s. Super simple type stuff, using a paintbrush and just creating seed. And we kind of saw that, kind of like you were mentioning, that a lot of places, they don't have the space, they don't have the money to do the breeding or the pheno hunting. And so we just wanted to provide good genetics to people. We kind of always believe that everybody should grow the good stuff. It shouldn't be limited to the people that have access to it. It should be everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important to us to maintain diversity in the plants. I mean, especially in California, there's really been kind of a concentration on what people are working with and what they're breeding with, and there's just so much to work with the cannabis plant, and that's something that, like I said, the boss and a lot of the guys on the team are really passionate about. Like, you don't want to smoke the same weed for different things that you're doing, and we think of ourselves as a creative company. We're not trying to open up acres and acres of greenhouses to make clones and grow flower. We want to really focus on the breeding so that we can let other people do what they do best.
Yeah. No, I think that's super cool. There's definitely been a push in Washington, at least, for more strains that are CBD blends, for more strains, that are moving away from, the cakes. We're done with the cakes. It seems like we're now on the candy gas. So how do you guys pick, like, what parents to use? How do you pick what starting materials to breed from?
Well, some of it is just kind of a guess.
Mhm.
Some of it is like we like one cultivar. Maybe it's has a certain smell that we like. Maybe it's tall and big. And then we see another cultivar that maybe it's a little more PM resistant. Maybe we see something that's pest resistant. Maybe we see something that deals with high heat really well. So we kind of see those traits, and then we want to put them together and kind of see what happens. There's really no way that I know of to predict what's going to happen. So it's kind of like a guessing game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, some of that is literally just kind of saying you together. Let's see what happens.
Because my understanding, you guys are producing feminized seeds. So for the people who don't understand feminized seeds, you're using two females to create a viable seed, correct? And that's why you wouldn't get a herm or you wouldn't get a male plant, hopefully, because there isn't that chromosome that carries the male genetics. Is that right?
Yeah. We also produce regular seeds and also autoflower seeds.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, the general idea behind the feminized seed is that farmers aren't having to worry about pulling the males.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely still get a hermaphrodite. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely possible. And I think it's about 1 out of 2,000 you might see a male. So it still does happen from time to time. But yeah, the main idea is that someone can buy 6 seeds, grow them all out, and they don't have to worry about which one of them is a male.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice for like the small home grower that sometimes they don't even have the room for males, or they don't even know what the males look like until it's too late.
Right. Or they don't have room for clone stock, right? Like most people at home, they only have one room. So to keep a clone stock going under a different photo period separate from your flowering, it's almost impossible for some people, right? Yeah. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So what traits specifically do you think are the most important when you're doing, breeding work? What do you always like? Are there rules that they always have to hit, or is it just we see what happens?
So just to kick it off, I mean, we do have breeding goals. So we'll focus on certain things like, for example, one of our breeding goals is breeding for hash production, and kind of identifying which strains are really going to have those traits for the trichomes or have really unique terpene profiles, and look at those and put them together. Other goals are maybe just THC or certain flower look, ease of growth, for like field production to really help reduce the cost of production. Other things we're looking for something really unique that's great for the home grower, like a high like a 1-to-1 CBD THC that's maybe 16% THC, 16% CBD that is really can be nice medicine for people. So there's certain kind of programs that we're running all side by side and trying to put things together. But what else would you add to that, Cowboy?
I'd say, it really kind of comes down to what we're wanting to do with that. Like kind of like Mel was saying, if a goal is outdoor production, then structure is really important. How thick the branching is, how big the plant is. If we're more focusing on like indoor tent guys, then we don't need a 6 foot, 7 foot plant. So maybe we're trying to focus on something a little bit shorter. And yeah, you know, even with the THC, even though we don't like to preach that THC is the way, it is where the market is going. So we're also kind of looking for those high numbers, you know, the mid 20s, low 30s. It kind of comes down to each individual little project, because there's so many different, you know, there's so many different traits in the cannabis plant that can suit so many different people based on where you're at. You know? So,
how many generations or how many times do you grow out a plant that you've bred before you actually put it to market?
Ideally, we want to get 3 times in. So you want to get your first round in, kind of see what you're working with. Then you want to get another round in and hopefully introduce some stress testing, trying to see if that plant's going to herm. Maybe putting that plant, you know, in a certain area where it's really hot. Maybe starving it for water and just kind of see how it deals with that. And then by the 3rd time, we should have a really, really good understanding of what that variety is going to do. So 3 times is kind of ideal. Yeah.
So essentially 6 months before you even really tell anybody that.
Yeah, that's a minimum.
That's a minimum. I mean,
we're working. Yeah, I mean, we're working on stuff right now that we'll be releasing summer 2023.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think people fail.
We're kind of always like a year ahead.
Right. Yeah. I think people fail to recognize that it's a lot of forecasting when it comes to breeding programs, when it comes to even buying your clones. Like, yeah, you're not really going to see this strain come to market for a very long time. So right now, people are searching for the hot new thing. They're looking through seed bank menus, and you know, they're not even going to necessarily get that product to market for another 6 months after they start it, if they're doing their due diligence, right? At least most of the time.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things where PCG, myself, people that work there, we've always kind of had our finger on the pulse, and we're kind of able to see what's trending, what's coming, and try to predict that, because the stuff that we're making right now is for next year. So we can't really work on, you know, we don't want to work on a bunch of candy gas if next year it's going to be all sour and OG type stuff. So it really is about kind of predicting the future, which can be kind of a challenge in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine. Yeah.
And it's kind of a tension too with you know, breeders. Like, there's lots of people that are just like, you know, throwing stuff together, releasing it out before really like doing all that due diligence on the trials, and then, you know, people are disappointed with what they're getting, and you know, but you got to also stay with the market too. So there's always like, how much time can you take, and we try to like have a good little balance there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been seed packs that I've popped that, you know, out of the 10 seeds, I had 2 that actually even went into a room, and then I killed both of those. So, you know, it's like you get what you pay for. At least that's been my experience, which is actually an interesting question. Like, how do y'all price a clone? How do you value a seed pack? Like, how do you put a number on those things when keeping in mind it takes so long to develop those genetics?
Gosh, I mean, you know, we have a couple of different like avenues that we sell in, and you know, we have to kind of be competitive within the market, and you know, the clone market in California is probably anywhere right now from $4 to $12, and you know, averages being around like $6, $7, $8, and we're on the higher end of that. We price ourselves at like 8 to 10, to, you know, because we have an indoor facility, such an experienced team. We run a really tight operation, and so our you know, our clones are really high quality. And you know, then we also have kind of an off menu list of moms that we hold for exclusive deals, so cultivators can get something that's really unique that no one else has, and those are priced much higher than $10 a clone.
Yeah. Well, because my understanding and my experience is okay, I paid $4 for 10 cuts. Now I can sell this genetic to my homie for $4 for 10 cuts or whatever it is, you know? So you obviously have to make a decision about what you want to sell as a clone that you're okay with proliferating through the market like wildfire and what you have to sign. So do you sign like a licensing agreement with some of those genetics then?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then, when it comes to the seed, sorry.
No,
And
you're
then when
fine.
it comes to the seeds, we always kind of want to make stuff affordable.
Mm-hmm.
There's some companies out there that are charging outrageous amounts of money for their seeds, and not everybody can spend $500 or $1,000 on a pack of seeds. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to kind of provide a good quality seed for a reasonable amount of money is definitely a goal of ours.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to price ourselves out of the average person, because we're the average person, and I want to be able to spend money and not have to break the bank.
Yeah. Do you find that most of your seeds are shipped out of California, or do you find that most of your seeds go to other states, or do they stay pretty much in California?
Well, we distribute our seeds in dispensaries across California, and people purchase them. And what happens after that, we don't always know. So, but we do get tagged from all over the world, actually.
Yeah.
So.
I noticed you guys have Purple City Genetics EU, so I assumed that was due to the international nature of seeds.
No, actually, no. We have a seed company in Barcelona. Where we distribute seeds to all the countries that we're legally allowed to distribute to, which is like most of the EU, also South America. And that was started by the founder a couple of years ago to expand our brand internationally, and that's been really fun to work with them and see what those markets are like too.
Yeah, absolutely. So they have genetics of yours growing in Barcelona and Israel and places like that, I assume?
Yep. Yeah,
exactly. That's really cool. Wow. Very, very cool.
Global.
Global.
Which is nice.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, well, let's get back to some of the more of the little details, I guess. What goes into naming a genetic? I've always thought that was a really interesting thing that breeders get to do, right? Because I'm, as a dispensary manager, I'm selling things like the Miracle Whip, right? Which not maybe the most appealing flavor profile in your mind, or I'm selling things like Gelato or Sunday Driver. Like, where do those names come from?
Well, I think that early on in this, it was often what the parents were. So like I was saying, me and my dad crossed the White Widow and Blueberry together, and names like Barry White was really easy, and now it's getting to the point where it's not just about the parents. It's almost about like branding, like you have like the Gary Payton that got released, that's a basketball player, but the way they branded that, it made people really want that. So naming it now is kind of how creative you can be, naming is a big thing. It's actually kind of a challenge.
Totally. It's almost like you need to hire somebody in marketing just to figure out, what you're going to name things. Like, I noticed y'all are releasing a cross of the Fort Collins cough, right? And is it called 1987? Is that right? So where did that name come from? Like, I guess I don't understand that name.
Well, I didn't personally name that one, but I believe that because the boss named that one.
Yeah.
And I believe the idea came from just older genetics. Things that were around in the 80s, the Fort Collins, because the strain itself, I mean, it's an amazing strain. It's a strong sativa. It's real tall. It doesn't look the best in the bag, when you compare it to like cookies or something.
Sure.
But then when you smoke it, you have a whole new understanding of what a high sativa can do. And there's no ceiling to it. It can, it can make your heart start racing all of a sudden, and I think some of that is being unique, you know, and so when he said he's going to name that in 1987, it was like, well, that's actually really cool because it's kind of a unique thing. It's just a year, you know. But
Yeah.
I'm
I
not sure
certainly
exactly what was going on when he named it.
I certainly haven't seen any menus with other, plants named just a date. So that one got me probably pretty excited. Yeah. Yeah. Are there any that you named that you feel really proud of?
Yeah. I mean, Slurdy 3 was something that I'm kind of proud of. We crossed the Slurricane from in-house genetics to Gelato 33.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did a little Instagram post on it a couple years back, I was getting all these names in and people coming up with ideas, and I was trying to figure out how do I combine the Slurricane name and the Gelato name.
Mm-hmm.
And since we used Gelato 33, right, when Slurdy 3 kind of came about, I'm like, well, that's perfect, you know? And so it's something that just kind of popped up, you know? And then some things like the Gush Mints, which is probably our most popular strain, that was really easy to name because it was Kush Mint crossed to the F1 Derb crossed to Gushers from Connected. So sometimes you do get lucky and the parents allow for a good name that hasn't been used already or that doesn't sound kind of corny or cheesy, you know?
Yeah, some of the names are getting pretty corny and cheesy. I took part in a little pheno hunt, and the parents were Vortex and Blood Wreck. And so I named it Sharknado, and I'm actually very proud of it.
That's pretty good. So
it's like, I mean, everybody wants to smoke some Sharknado. That's easy marketing. Like, let's go.
Totally.
Oh, but I mean, I guess I understand. There's a lot that goes into it. When I pop, packs from people, it's a big decision to decide if I name it what I would bought it as, or if the pheno is so unique in my mind that it deserves its own new name. You know, because like a seed pack that's Blue Magoo, Miss Universe, Blueniverse. There's a ton of Blueniverse out there. Is my version of Blueniverse good enough to warrant its own name? Or is it going to be competing with everybody else's Blueniverse, right? Yeah. So that's a hard thing.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I'm not always the best when it comes to names. The boss and his brother are really, really good at it. Some people just kind of have a knack for coming up with things.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I'm super simple, you know, and beyond that, I'm like, I'm not really sure. I just want to grow it. You know, I want to do everything else.
Marketing doesn't have to be everybody's, thing. If you don't know it, you hire somebody to do it. That's the best rule of thumb, right? Yeah. So what's up next? What is, Purple City going after in the future months? Like, what should we keep our eyes open for?
Well, like Mel was saying, we're working on a lot of hash varieties. We're getting ready to launch El Creme, which is a hash company. And so our big focus right now has just been to grow these hash varieties out and try to come up with stuff that washes really well, come up with stuff that's, it's got a great terpene profile and something that kind of transfers from the flower to the hash. Like right now we got the Moroccan Peach, which is a peach strain from Spain, which is a really good hash variety. The hash on that is amazing. It's almost, it's kind of unbelievable how much it smells like peaches. And so we took that and crossed that to the Lemon Tree Scourge. I've always been a fan of the Lemon Tree, but it's a crappy grower. It's not fun to grow at all. So we wanted to try to kind of take those terpene profiles from the Lemon Tree. The Scourge is an old Skunk One Calio strain.
Oh, cool.
So it's got a lot of the orange terps in it.
Yeah.
And so kind of mixing all that together, and it really is a fruity, mango-y type of strain. So that's kind of something that we got going on. Same with the Pineapple Breeze, which is the Grande Guava crossed to our Caribbean cookies. So that's going to be another one that kind of has a real fruity type profile, which seems to be really popular with the hash.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it comes to flowers, not everybody wants that fruity flower anymore. They kind of want that gassy, funky candy. But when it comes to the hash, everybody loves those peach terps, the mango terps, the strawberry terps.
Oh,
Everybody
definitely.
really likes that one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of where we've been targeting, you know, recently.
Cool.
Yeah, and then also trying to bring back the sativas. You
Yeah.
know, we're trying to make sativas great. You know, we're trying to make sativas great again. So, you know, being able to release things like the mango mentality, which is an old mango haze that takes 12, 13 weeks. We crossed it to gushment, got it down to 70 days, but you still have a lot of that mango haze terpene profile and a much better yield.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's kind of where we're at kind of currently.
that is a big issue with a lot of sativas, and I think that the consumer doesn't really understand that, you know, these genetics aren't all done in 7 weeks. Indicas seem to be fine in 7 weeks, right? But with some of these really big gnarly sativas, they take a really long time to mature, and if you were to bag them at, you know, even 9 weeks, sometimes they look a little boofy. They don't look right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really cool. I mean, go ahead.
Oh yeah, just, you know, and sometimes even when you take that sativa all the way to 12 weeks, it can still look a little boofy because everybody is so used to these frosty purple rock hard buds, beautiful orange hairs, like, which is great, but a lot of the sativas they just don't look like that. They just don't, they never will. You know, they're not going to
and same thing with CBD strains.
But absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Which speaking of CBD strains, we have a great one Mel kind of mentioned earlier, which is the CBD gushmints.
Yeah, I saw that.
And and that one does look like a THC strain.
That's
I mean, it's frosty, it's got color to it, it's nice and dense. And the numbers, I think we hit the 16% CBD, 16% THC. I was really impressed by smoking it. You know, because a lot of those CBD varieties, they have a good quality to them, but sometimes you want a little bit more of a head change. And so what I've always kind of done in the past is I'll take a CBD variety and I'll mix it with a little bit of a THC variety. And with a strain like this, you just don't need to. I mean, you know, it's an anxiety killer. It's great for insomnia. You know, sometimes I get really bad insomnia. I'll be working all day long and then I just can't go to bed, and a couple tokes on that, and next thing you know, I wake up and it's 5 a.m. time to get up again. So, you know,
start all over.
It's what I think is true. Yeah, it's what I think is, you know, true medicine. I mean, it's all medicine, but something like that really just helps your overall well-being is just a wonderful thing, you know.
Yeah, what I really liked about reading through your website was just the focus on effects more than anything else. Like, it seems like y'all are really interested in this plant as medicine for as many people who want it in that way. And then at the same time, for the people who want to use it recreationally, you do have those options, but you're not just singularly focused on like making exotic strain names and exotic, you know, THC dominant flower. Like, there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we basically think of exotics as like oh, sorry.
No,
thinking of exotics of like, you know, that it's truly rare, you know, that it's not, you know, just like a purple gassy, you know, strain. That's like, how can we incorporate exotics into our breeding program so that there is that diversity of effects, and that is, you know, kind of a guiding principle for us.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I'm sure bringing back sativas is just the beginning of how you're going to diversify the market as far as genetics go.
Absolutely. It kind of seems like the word exotics has been thrown around a little bit too much now. Now, you know, at one point, exotics were stuff that you couldn't get, stuff that was rare, stuff that you only heard about. And now, if it's purple, if it's frosty, and it's gassy with some candy, it's considered an exotic. And I'm kind of like, well, if everybody has it, is it really an exotic?
Yeah.
Or is it just a you know, and so in my opinion, the true exotics are like landrace strains and the Thais and
Fucking
the true
Acapulco Gold,
Afghanis
baby.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging as running a dispensary, because so many people will get on board with these exotics, and then I have menus come to me, and 6 different menus all have the same genetics on them. So it's certainly not an exotic strain
Yep.
anymore when 6 different people are cultivating
Nope.
it and trying to market it to me.
Yeah.
And I think what the consumer doesn't seem to understand quite yet is that, or maybe honestly, what the producer doesn't seem to understand is, you're taking away options from consumers when I, on my shelf, have 6 iterations of the same genetics. I mean, maybe there will be a little bit different expression. I don't discredit that. Everybody has different growing styles. Everybody has different values and whatnot. But the effects are going to be largely the same if the genetics are identical. So now a consumer who used to have 6 options of different genetics to choose from, now they have 6 options of farmers to choose from and no options as far as genetics. So it really limits, everybody's success when we are all just growing the same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something that we've all kind of, that was something that we've all kind of noticed over the years. I worked at Harborside from the end of 2013 to 2016, and it seemed like there was a good variety going on. We would have 20 varieties on the menu, and they were all a little bit different because they all came from these home growers, these garage growers, these guys that were, walking in with a backpack and they're trying to sell you your pound. And so now, because those guys are no longer allowed to walk in with their backpack and sell weed anymore, we're stuck to 10 companies, and all those 10 companies, they all want to grow something that's going to sell. And it happens to be where now you walk in and you got like, a cookie variety, a gelato variety, and something of the mix of the two. And it's like, well, what happened to all the different varieties that we had going on?
Yeah. Where's that?
I noticed that in Washington State. And yeah.
Let's get that Sharknado.
Yeah.
Yeah, Washington State is particularly hard to deal with those issues, just because we did so much to separate producers from dispensaries, right? So I'm required to sell other people's weed, and to the consumer, it's really difficult to explain to them why I have 6 iterations of the same genetic and why they're all at different price points, or they're all, so I try and avoid that at all costs. I truly look for people with, honestly, more and more the old school genetics, like we're saying, the Acapulcos and the Blue Dreams, and the things that require less education to older customers. And then, of course, a little bit of limited release stuff. Like, limited release stuff is very fun, but if I'm going to spend, for me, my top shelf is $60. If I'm going to spend $60 on an eighth, it better be freaking amazing, and I better not be able to get it anywhere else. So, it's kind of my take on it. Yeah. Well,
and out here in California, $60 is a really good deal.
Yeah, I know. I've heard our markets are slightly different, but I would say my
Definitely
middle
different.
shelf is $40 an eighth. So it's a blessed place to be. Still getting good stuff at 40.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we could talk for a really long time, but we're just slightly over our normal allotted amount of time. So I'm going to wrap things up. Is there anything else y'all would like to say? Anything you'd like to plug, or anything you'd like to promote before we sign off?
No, I just really appreciate you having us on to be able to kind of talk about PCG and kind of talk about what we're about. So just super thankful for that.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on again for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and definitely come see us at Emerald Cup in Santa Rosa in December. That's when we do our exclusive release to the public of some really amazing genetics. So always great to talk to all the growers there.
Yeah, sounds like a fun time. Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, thank you to everyone who has signed on, who has been watching us in and out. who's going to watch this recorded. This has been episode 5. Yes, we decided it was 5. Episode 5 of Grow and Tell, presented by Respect My Region as part of the North American Weed Tour. So if anybody wants to get on here and talk about their thing, if anybody has any music or strains to review or dispensaries to feature, link up with us. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, all the things I'm supposed to plug. And thank you both so much for coming. Now we just wave at the camera while I figure out how to end the stream. This is
Thank you so much.